Today it's a world premiere. It's the first time that I'm having someone from my own organization recording with me on my channel. Luke, very warm welcome. What are we going to talk about today?
Thank you. So glad to be here. We're going to turn all of your listeners today from beginners in platform engineering to heroes and just a quick 30-minute discussion where we become experts and power users.
That sounds very interesting and I think like a very important topic. I know platform engineering has been in the wild for a while, and I know that this kind of sounds like an old talk because you have already given that with a good friend of mine, Julia, last year at KubeCon North America. But I think it's a worthwhile topic that is not out of date, right? So, Luke, I'm really glad that we're taking the time today to talk about platform engineering, helping everybody that already knows what it is to level up, and helping others that are new to the topic to understand what the concepts are and what mistakes maybe you can also do. Um,
Yeah.
given it's the first time I'm recording with someone from FICO, I need to kind of put this out. Like, we're not going to talk about FICO internals or FICO details. We're not going to take the experience that we're having in our own organization, right? So, Luke, let's make that clear. That's very important.
Yep.
That means let's talk about industry standards of platform engineering, about best practices, about things that you have been talking about in the community, and I think that brings me directly to you as a guest. Tell us a bit about yourself, Luke.
Yeah.
What are you doing for the community, and what's your engagement over there?
Yeah. Like you mentioned, this talk was given previously at KubeCon North America in Atlanta with a good friend, Julia. It was a real honor and privilege and just great experience to get to work with her on this talk. And we were so excited. This was actually my first KubeCon accepted talk. I've been in a lot of the co-located community talks. So you'll see me specifically a lot in the Argo community. So I'm known as a Argo CD super user, super fan. I've made a few small contributions there, but otherwise just have really utilized the tool a lot in the kind of application delivery space, CI/CD space, and working with those tools and in those communities have kind of grown over the years in that space. I have what other communities? There's been through the GitOps organizations. There's been some meetings there or some interactions through that. But certainly, even for myself, being in the community, I've been a professional, however you want to call that, developer for over 20 years now. Working my way up from intern, software engineer, software architect, platform and principal engineer now. And you'll see even, I have it in the title slide here, this little switch from principal to staff software engineer when I gave this talk was only days before I had started at FICO. So just adjusting and just getting into this. And so even, this was a few months ago. I don't know enough yet to be able to disclose anything at FICO, so we don't have to worry about
That's good. Sounds good. And to be honest, you have a few things that I have on my bucket list. Like speaking at a KubeCon would be something I really want to do, right? And also upping my contributions for open source is also something that I've had on my bucket list for a while. So pretty really cool to see that someone that works at FICO is doing that stuff, and we are doing pretty cool stuff at FICO as well, right? So all of the things that we are doing is exciting, and it's using the technologies that you have been practicing in the community, and I think that's really good to have an expert like that part of the team. Coming back to the topic, Luke, um, if we look at platform engineering in sense, there's the problem that it's like similar to DevOps, so many different interpretations of it. Um, do we want to talk a little bit about experience and about different perspectives of platform engineering? So, if I remember Julia's a friend of mine as well. We've known each other from the AWS community. She never sounded like a platform engineer to me. So, is she? What do you
what
think?
an engineer is supposed to sound like.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. Um, maybe someone with a very chaotic mindset, I would say.
Kubernetes, everything. Is that the
Maybe that's one thing potentially. It-
there's
It's 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 just technical stuff. Look, what do you think?
yeah, I think it's and we'll get into that here in the talk a little bit as well. And that's part of the genesis of this talk, why Julie and I came together on this one, where we're both in Julie and I are both contributors in the community of the cloud native community. We're in a lot of both, like you know her through the AWS community, AWS Heroes, our interactions through cloud native community and open source community, building or at least understanding, seeing the whole landscape of possibilities and how we put together these tools to build solutions for the companies we work at or companies we have worked at or other things that we just see in the industry. But for both of our backgrounds, really, I have a long engineering background. Having even when I was in school, I was studying electrical engineering before I had jumped out and just got into doing software and all the software possibilities that I've been able to enjoy. Long developer experience. Julia, I think her background is a lawyer. She studied law before she got into technical work. And so she kind of has that non-technical background, but is, working that way. So kind of there's a point in which Julia and I cross paths, both I think when you get into platform engineering, and we'll get into this some more a little bit later, where it's like what makes a good platform engineer? I think it's that perhaps a diversity of backgrounds. There's not one good background, I think, that makes for a good engineer. It's really saying, all right, I have a network engineering background, but I'm also interested in the customer experience and building products that help people. Or I have a product engineering background and I'm also interested in building technical solutions that solve our business needs. I have application developer experience. And I also want to bring that towards a customer solution. So I think it's a variety of backgrounds that want to build a good product, essentially.
And I think that's a key aspect of platform engineering as well. Like to look at the, what we're building is a platform, and the platform is a product, and that's one of the very important portions, right? And I don't know, right? If you, I've been trying to get people to join FICO to work on our platform engineering efforts, and I think one thing that everybody expects from that kind of role is everything is going to be very structured and organized, and everything is going to be cool, and you're providing services to other teams somehow. A lot of people mix that up with DevOps. Where do you see the main difference with platform engineering and DevOps, Luke?
I saw a really good comment actually just moments ago that you can have really good platform engineering and it doesn't mean DevOps goes away.
Mm-hmm.
You still have DevOps with platform engineering. I think it's important to recognize, as a company, what are you going to be working on? Do you need a platform? These are really, I know platform engineering gets a lot of buzz, but is it, necessarily appropriate? Are you looking to really scale up your developers? Do you have enough developers? Do you have a large enough organization that some developers working on, say, platform work give you enough return that helps everyone, or are you such a small organization that one developer moving off to kind of platform work, you've lost productivity out of that. So there is a lot to get into what those what is kind of returned on that. And then likewise, are you happy with just doing operational type work, just IT ops, your service desk, work queues, those kind of things? Is that it's a very comfortable space to work in and to manage an organization? Is that kind of where both your leadership and your technical expertise align, and you're happy being there, or are you ready to move on to the challenges of platform engineering? Mm.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. Now let's dive into it. What are things that you and Julia mainly talked about? What is the key things that you believe we need to know if we want to get started with platform engineering?
Jump into the talk a little bit here.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Let's get into pretend. So the first part of the talk, as we go through the slides, people pretend that the first 15 slides here. First 10 minutes of our conversation will be, I'm Julia. I will try to present
Okay, that
her.
means that when I edit this now, I need to put in the face of Julia, so
Yes,
everybody knows. Hey,
yes,
Julia, this is you, and we're going to talk a little bit about the essence of what you shared at KubeCon.
yeah. And kind of, I think some of the questions you were asking before, and for Julia, in the same kind of comments where she's like, "Oh, I'm coming into this space, and there's the high level views, like the perfect platform." She had made the analogy between like a brand new highway. It's easy to merge on, and you're fast, you're productive, pretty easy to drive down versus the reality of maybe you're not a new company starting fresh and you have this brand new highway, but you're already a busy company with a lot of work. You have traffic, you have mixed workloads, cars, buses, bikes, things like that, all trying to use the same limited amount of infrastructure that you have. Um, and
Let's
then,
say we're promising people to drive on the German autobahn, which is the left-hand side, and then, in contrary, people get Bangalore traffic, which might resonate to a lot of people. And I think that's a good call out. And I think I've heard that a lot from organizations saying that standard doesn't exist that we see on the left-hand side. From your previous engagements and conversations at KubeCon, like, Luke, do you think the left-hand side really exists in any organization?
I think there's more to it than that. It's getting to, and you'll see this when we get to my part of the conversation, where it's not just is it an open highway, but you need to recognize, like, if you're going to scale your organization, much like our analogies here of how we deliver people, these highways and these,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how do you effectively move people and the trade-offs you have to make between the freedom people get to choose and how they move versus are there more effective ways to utilize your infrastructure and to move people or move software, delivering software,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
like in these analogies, in this high traffic areas, people are going off making their shadow pipelines, shadow IT departments, those things like that. How do you, certainly close the gap between these realities? As you were saying before, like what does a platform engineer sound like? Is it just saying like, oh, I've got Kubernetes and it's for running containers, and you're someone like, Julia, like her example is coming into this like, I know how Kubernetes works. I can run containers. That's great. And then you have someone like me, maybe the more technical person saying, "Oh, and here's the entire CNCF," and you're like, "Oh no, I'm so worried."
Yeah,
Of
you're completely lost, right, with that.
yeah,
At
yeah,
least, so I started my Kubernetes journey like 3 years ago. I don't know if you know that, Luke, but I have been avoiding it in my whole career just because of that landscape being that big and Johannes being frightened of getting into the weeds of all of the different technology choices that you can make of that. So this really resonates with me.
I think it's thinking about it as you're just saying there. 'Cause, I know you're an AWS hero as well, so you're very comfortable with everything that AWS provides. I'm assuming, um, and so I've treated Kubernetes as kind of my safety blanket of sorts, and that I've not gotten into a lot of the details of AWS going, all right, as long as it's a container and I've abstracted in Kubernetes, I'm so happy. I'm fine. This is
That makes sense, yeah.
yeah.
And it's a different ecosystem at the end, right? But
Yeah.
at the end, it's the same stuff.
Yep. So yeah, in kind of Julia's conversation here where, it's you have all these tools, but if you look at that landscape and you just bring it all together without the guardrails, without um, policies and processes, too many choices, too many decisions, you've created too much cognitive overhead. So let me just kind of visualize everything that Julia had put in here. It's like what are the challenges to good platforms? And so she just kind of describing like coming in from the non-technical, what how perhaps more like as a customer adoption experience or from non-technical wanting to get into the platform. Is a platform being something I'm being told to use? Is it a leaky abstraction, too many features of like the CNCF roadmap? Does the organization want this versus the pushback? Is there a feedback mechanism? Things like that. These are some of the challenges where it's like, this is intimidating if I'm told, you have to climb this mountain and good luck with the tools. And yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And I think I've heard that a lot as well.
Yeah. So that's certainly a challenge.
And
Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, and I said it is really a challenge to kind of being forced to go on a path that you even don't understand, right? So initially, when you start the platform engineering journey, do you know where you're heading towards? Most likely you don't. Do you know what you're trying to achieve with the platform that you're going to build and expose to your users? And I think you don't, right?
And so as Julia kind of said in this, newcomer experience, for her non-technical career, she was saying, I'm starting off as a developer at the bottom of the mountain, like you just saw. I came into, tech very new. It was very intimidating, massive, terrified. So much of the platforms, and I see a lot of this even day to day of, I'm so afraid of breaking production. I'm so afraid of asking the wrong questions. I'm afraid of not even belonging. Am I on the right team? Things like that. Has, is the platform like, can I break things, or is it put the right guardrails around it kind of thing? Have we thought about those kind of challenges, things like that? Or to that highway example, can I merge in, or is it, I'm just not even going to bother with the highway. I'm just going to take all the side roads.
Yeah.
Things like that. Um,
Yeah, and it can be really hard, right? Especially if the technical terms are not really what you're good at either, right? So,
yeah. Yeah. And so you get into these challenges thinking about like customer experience and thinking about what for anyone that wants to get into this platform, what is that experience going to be like? What are some usable steps, building blocks, things like that? So is it a progressive, some kind of progressive default in the space of like, oh, is there an out of the box, ready to go configuration? Is it a Git repo with all of your CI, CD pipelines, example code, make file, build commands ready to go? We've maybe talked before of like, a golden helm chart as an example. I even find that though is maybe too leaky of an abstraction. It's still really important to do, but have you thought about, what is the abstraction of an application in your environment, and how do you manage that and create kind of that, again, this set of kind of building block features, things like that.
yeah.
So this is Julia's take on how you build this accessible and safe experience.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is really hard to decide on at the beginning, right? You don't really think about all of these things if you haven't made the mistakes before, right? And even if we call things like all of this platform engineering today, I think when I started my career 20 years ago, we had the same situation. We had someone that we kind of called the tooling team trying to make the life simpler for developers somehow, allowing them to do quick tests or quick verifications or things like that, right? And even though like platform engineering sounds to be completely different, it tries to solve similar problems in this case, right? Especially if you're building an internal developer platform, right? Which most of the organizations are doing these days.
Yep. Assuming, the organization is of an appropriate size that building these platforms makes sense, that the investment makes sense. And kind of this transition part of the presentation is when going from Julie's story, kind of a personal story, here's one person's experience into a platform to like, oh, Luke has worked in large enterprises, a variety of large enterprises, going from hundreds to thousands of developers' experiences. And there's kind of
So before we kind of move away from that one, do you think recognizing patterns is one of the skills that you need to be a good platform engineer?
what do you mean by recognizing patterns?
Like at the end, what you're saying is we have one user with a problem, but when does it make sense to integrate this into the platform that we're building? It doesn't make sense if there's only one user. It makes sense if there's a pattern where multiple users are going to have the same problem. And that's what we're trying to solve with platform engineering concepts at the end, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like how often are you doing, is every developer in your organization doing repeated processes? And can you abstract that? And how do you enable the developer to continue to be productive? And what are the things that are um, preventing them from being productive? Is there a lot of repeat work that can be abstracted away and
Okay,
scaled?
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so looking at those challenges and you're kind of looking at like as an evolution of capabilities. A developer is kind of building a Genesis product. They're writing brand new code, but at some point they want it to, they're going to run it on their machine. They're going to run it on a server. They're going to run it in a container, in a VM. They eventually want to move into a utility model, and
Yeah.
what is slowing them down from kind of getting to that utility model of deploying their software so that they can move on to the next Genesis, the next idea, building the next thing, and kind of repeating that process kind of thing. So removing those roadblocks, kind of improving the movement of things. And so, like at this point, is when I get into the presentation. So Julia's transferred to me, one of the things that's really fun, going back to the really beginning of our talk of like what's so fun about the community in open source. So it was through these communities that I met Julia, and we kind of found our way to collaborating on this talk. And originally, she put out some slides when we were developing this talk, and she made that traffic analogy. And I was like, oh, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's a brilliant way for me to take it into the scale discussion, going, all right, from traffic to trains and rail and things like that. That's how I see, the scale analogy moving, where you go from, a lot of individual pipelines, cars delivering people, that you have a lot of freedom, but that creates a lot of traffic versus rails. You have a lot of guardrails, a lot of defined paths, things like that. There's a lot of trade-offs to moving that way, but if you want to move people or if you want to deliver software at scale, you have to, move in that direction. That's where the analogy kind of goes.
So in 5 years, we're going to talk about transportation to Mars, then, right? And it's going to be the next level of platform engineering, maybe, right?
Right. All right. Um, and there's
Starships.
Yes, yes, but those are still like, those are custom deliveries right now. At some point, so what is how do you um, put the right, guardrails? How do you do things
Mm-hmm.
and things like that? This was kind of belaboring, the slide was belaboring the transit analogy. The point here, just thinking about traffic in cars versus, the infrastructure that you put into place. So like the analogy that a car is the least effective um, use of infrastructure, and trains are a much more effective use of infrastructure. And I think the same analogy plays to your software development, your software pipelines, things like that. If you want to deliver software and people, um, you know, the guardrails and things that allow you to scale. That's kind of belaboring that analogy.
And that also means that if you do platform engineering right, that should speed up your software development if you're good at the platform engineering, right?
Yes.
So, okay, yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of organizations are aiming for, especially since DevOps mindset started, right?
Yep. And kind of, I'm kind of skipping over some of the background conversation bit a little bit, but as we're cruising along here, like um, my background in software development and the software architecture, I made this really fun moment, asking the audience if you watch the calls, like or the previous videos, like, all right, everyone, the answer to the question is, how do I choose any of these trade-offs? Like, well, it depends. If you can all say that, you are now senior software architects, you're enterprise architects. It's the same thing here too, like with platforms. You have, as I'm showing here, you have all these the architectural trade-offs, all the abilities, the scalability, the performance, speed,
Yeah.
security, things like that. As you're crafting your platform, you're going to make your choices through this. You're going to navigate through these choices. And how do you decide what choices to make? That's when you have to work through the feedback cycle with your end users. What do they need, and what does your business need? What challenges does your business have? Because using different cloud providers and different data storage and distributed systems or monolithic systems, and are you doing all sorts of cool agile code review systems, or is it monolithic things like that? How do you manage security? Make those choices so developers and others don't have to make those choices again. Um,
And I think that's an important call out, right? Platform engineering reduces the choices that developers have to make, and because of that, it reduces the friction of they taking stuff to production as well, right?
yep, yep. Um, the slide, just a detailed example of like taking those architectural choices, putting it into code. This is a fitness function example that I put in, saying, let's kind of dog food our process here as we're designing architectures. You can use if you're using the cloud, you have APIs. You can ask the cloud. You can create fitness functions going. Uh, are the various metrics, the things I'm observing, security policies, deployments, are they matching what I had architected and the choices? That was one detail. But yeah, kind of continuing on, I was like, how you get through those choices, you need to do feedback processes. You want to continuously have a feedback loop. So the feedback loop in customer interactions, I think, ultimately gets the define success, or the critical components of being a successful platform engineer. Again, looking at that CNCF landscape, myself as an engineer, I'm drawn to complexity. I see that landscape. I'm so excited about that. Neil Ford puts it perfectly that developers are drawn to complexity like moths to a flame, often
True.
with the same outcome. As an engineer, I'm so excited to pull all that stuff together, but I have to remain user-focused, customer-focused, balancing the various trade-offs, and then continuously going through a feedback cycle of does this capability help? Is it moving the needle for what we need? Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
As you're going through your platform engineering journey, as you're going through those feedback cycles, show off the platform that you're building and kind of think about the culture in your own organization as far as successful open source projects and commercial products. They have all sorts of public demos and showcases, not training sessions, but showcases. Here's what's new, here's what's possible, how your attendees react or how your colleagues react to your platform capabilities. That's your research feedback, things like that. And this is also a mechanism how you, as we were talking, as you were saying, like you want to be a KubeCon speaker someday. Like this is how, like doing these kind of internal demos and talks, how I can build up, say, my colleagues and teammates saying, you do this demo, not me do the demo all the time. You do it, and someday this, helps you, mentor people and improve their ability to.
Would you say that if you're building a platform and you're marketing it bad, the platform is gonna fail?
That will be a good challenge, yes. That I think that is part of that's your ability to, I don't want to say market, but your ability to discuss and to relate.
With market, it is like the idea of showcases that you just bring up. Like you
Yeah,
go to your clients, you present what the platform is good of, right? If no one knows of a feature, no one will use it. If no one knows of a simpler path that you have been building for the users, they will not know how to use it because no one told them, right?
right.
Which is where I think it becomes, and we talked about that a little bit earlier when we said building a platform is building a product somehow, and for a good product you also need to have marketing for that product somehow, right? And I think that's something that I would say engineers are not good at least that's what I always see, right? Engineers are not good at marketing the cool stuff that they're doing usually.
Right.
Do you
Right.
agree, or?
Well, I mean, that gets into some of the comments I was making at the beginning as well, where we do have an organization, any organization is full of engineers, but then some of those engineers, I think, will move into, say, platform engineering. Those engineers are going to have that, or at least a desire to want to work on that skill set of how do I share and communicate through these features,
Mhm.
capabilities or marketing what the platform is capable of and being able to have those interactions. Um, so it is, yeah, it is a challenge. And platform, we can't, I don't think we can just blanketly say everyone's a platform engineer.
I
Yeah.
would agree. Yeah. So the champions concept, I've heard that before as well. What is behind that? Why is that important?
I think it's a part of as you're going through these processes and you're, showcasing demos, things like that, you'll have other developers in your organization, those other engineers that perhaps are really excited about your platform. They're building things that surprise you. Bring those developers into your planning for your platform. They'll become your kind of evangelists. They might go off and they'll have like this hero mindset. They might go write blogs. They might go create podcasts about your platform and things like that. And those will do a lot more, hopefully, a lot more kind of evangelism than simply just here's my docs, kind of things
Yeah,
like.
yeah, and I think that's important, right? You need to find users that love to use your product, right? If you recall, that's a very important part of a lot of successful platforms that we see out in the world.
Yep.
Kubernetes being one of them, right?
Yep. Yeah. This part of our talk, this was a moment of a technical deep dive saying, oh, by the way, here's some real data behind some of the science in platform engineering. There's this Git state of GitOps report, really great to review.
Yeah, let's skip through that at
Yeah,
the moment. I think I might have a similar recording soon.
yep. Uh, I'm always happy to go into it more as well. Just kind of the one talking about essentially, at a company I was working at before deployment, our organization was great at talking or tracking all incidents, and before GitOps, after GitOps, incidents dropped way off. But
Okay.
if you want to check out, we don't have to dive into it now, but I have a variety of talks. If you want to get way into all the technical details of GitOps, I have some things there.
Amazing. We're going to put that all in the show notes so you get people to watch those talks as well. Right.
Yeah.
So I think the GitOps part is an important portion of a platform these days, especially if you build it on Kubernetes. And there's more details on that. I have a few videos on that. And as we saw, Luke also has a bunch of videos on that. So we'll link them so you can find them later.
Yeah. The final key, I think, to platform success is measuring the platform. There's a variety of mechanisms, DORA, Space, Monk, that provide frameworks for measuring. What I think is key to all of these and going along with a lot of things we've been talking about so far is that there's a human component to all of these and not to lose that human touch point. You can't metric your way out of talking to people, but you do need metrics to guide those conversations.
Yeah, and I think that's important, right? Platform adoption and platform usage is something that you somehow need to do, right? So, what's your ideas on how you're doing that? Like, besides the known metrics that you already mentioned, what
Right.
do you
If
think?
you're looking at DORA, space, things like that, but the ones I was going to call out here specifically is CSAT or customer satisfaction or user
Mhm.
satisfied. You're checking this on a monthly or quarterly basis. Maybe you have some Slack sentiment analysis, things like that. And then NPS, Net Promoter Score, is another big one. Would someone recommend your product? Whoever is the promoter, the nines to tens, you put them into your champions, and things like that.
Yep, makes sense, and I think that's important, right? Um,
Yeah. Um, the big lesson out of the talk, this was kind of the big summary I wanted to take home at the end of our talk. Some details we quickly moved over is though to finally remember that you're building a product, not a project. Platforms are products. Projects have end dates. Products are durable, iterable, solving persistent business issues forever. Always be learning, always be iterating, measuring, refining. The key here, this is a great talk from Steve Jobs, where he once said, start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology.
that means you're never going to be done with building the platform that you're trying to build, right?
so long as your business is doing business, um, the business, it's like business itself, whatever products your company is delivering is constantly evolving. And so you have to
I
evolve.
would say as long as you have a healthy business where there's new inputs and changes coming to the business and to the requirements, you're always going to have a living product for the platform, right? Obviously, if your business is stale, right, then there is no need to change, right? But I think yeah, it's a good call out, right? A lot of people tend to forget that, right? Sometimes we try to finish this portion of a platform and finish this portion of a project, right? And we think we're done, but in fact, we're just one step further towards the next step that we need to do. And I think that's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah. That becomes a cultural challenge, a leadership challenge, a technical leadership challenge as well of recognizing what are the projects that we're going to put together that build our product, um, and to think that and not get stuck in the weeds. I mean, certainly there's times you have to dive in. Why is this specific sprint and story? What's going on here? But to always come back out and go, how does this play into the bigger thing, where we're headed? We did leave some links in our talk. These are the books everyone should go check out. Um, and we picked some of these books as well, just because like some of these are friends, Marcio, Hillary Lipsig, and others, all great platform engineering books. And from my own background in architecture, how I think about trade-offs, things like that. Anything by Neil Ford, Mark Richards. These are a couple great books to check out too.
Now I'm a bit shocked that you didn't call out one of the platform guys from Germany that I always quote when I talk about building platforms. You know the architecture elevator guy, Gregor Hope.
Ah,
Uh,
yes.
yes, you missed his books on platform engineering that he kind of wrote as well, but that's a good one as well.
Yeah.
He gave me a copy a few years ago. But this is also great literature to consume additional information, right? And also kind of maybe get away from your PC when you think about this, right? Building a platform is not only technology, as we mentioned, right? Building a platform is also addressing the needs of your end users that are going to work with the platform. And I think that's a very important thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Cool, Luke. This was really, really good. I have some notes on a short summary. Um, what I kind of summarized for myself is platform engineering especially helps to increase the speed of software delivery for your organization, but you need to take a decision when it's worth investing into platform engineering because at start investing into platform engineering will take more effort, right? So it needs to be worth it at the end. It's very important to treat the platform that you're building as a product because you need to keep talking to the users. And if you're not building a product, you don't have users, or you can't really have users. You also kind of called out that a platform gives the users less flexibility and less choices to make. This is a good and a bad thing, I would say, right? But especially people are put into trains into directions maybe, right? And that's less flexibility, but that gives them less choices to make and that makes them quicker. And the last thing that I took away with that is that you need to measure success of your platform. If you don't measure success, you're not going to be able to see if you're on the right track.
And I
Did I
think that
miss anything?
that is a great summary for sure.
Good. And now, before we end for today, Luke, how can people reach out to you? How can people learn what you're doing at FICO? Maybe not in public, but if they are interested to interact with you or maybe also even join your team, how do I reach you?
Um, Fortunate enough, we even had in the slide some QR codes and social media handles. You can reach out to myself as Julia if you want to Photoshop my face there, and then for myself as Luke, both to our LinkedIn's, and you will find me. The social media is for Blue Sky for me. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, Luke Phillips. I'm always happy to connect with anyone out there. And if you see me at a future KubeCon event or other community event, feel welcome to say hi and let me know that you saw this conversation. I'd love to tell everyone that, you know, I was on this podcast as well. So Thank you again, and thank you for having me. It's great to be a part of
Thank
it.
you for coming on, Luke. This was really good and really fantastic. And it's, as I said at the beginning, it's a pleasure to have someone from FICO on my channel talking about, um, I would call it industry standards and best practices. And I think there's more things that we can take away also from this conversation back into our organization. So if you have enjoyed this talk, please let us know in the comments if you're missing aspects or if you're missing perspectives on platform engineering that we did not cover. Please also let us know in the comments. And if you really want to shout at someone, shout at me and not at Luke, because I was the one forcing him to record this with me. So thank you so much for watching and have an amazing rest of your day wherever you are. Bye, Luke.
Thank you.